Excellent. So it's nice if anybody in the audience had the opportunity to see Caroline's presentation just a moment ago. She focused on the behavior of children in digital toys, and so really understanding how kids approach this problem. Famigo is a little bit different in that we're trying to understand the entire family. And so when I was thinking about this presentation, that's a topic. How do families interact around mobile technology that you could spend a ton of time on? And so what I'm going to do for you is just give a very high-level overview of three topics that I find to be true even as the mobile ecosystem is evolving every single day. So mobile is changing everything. And you hear this a lot, but when you think about how different it is for a child who can now access computing power while they're pre-literate, that's having a tremendous impact on kids younger than the age of 8. We're also going to talk about safety concerns. This is the hot topic. You hear a lot about this, children's safety on mobile. Lots of this is about COPPA. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then also, this is something that has recently been driven home for Famigo. We have sort of been pulled into the classroom. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to use mobile technology to improve educational outcomes. And it often surfaces in some surprising ways. So hopefully at the end of this talk, I will obviously be focusing on Famigo learning these things, but I think that there are some general lessons in here. So mobile is changing everything. These are some stats about children's media use under the age of 8 that Common Sense Media published in 2013. And I think that the first thing that should jump out at you from these stats is the fact that they are wrong. It's 2014, when you look at how quickly things are changing. So access to mobile devices has jumped roughly 25% in that 2-year period. We know that it's much higher now. There's just not a lot of great research yet for 2014. And I imagine that we're rapidly approaching a point of mobile ubiquity, especially after this holiday season. Families that have low socioeconomic status are also making huge strides. This is part of where I'm going to talk about the educational opportunities, but huge strides in terms of access. It used to be the case that mobile was the purview of higher wealth families, and now that is rapidly changing. Daily usage is increasing, and the most important part is not just that mobile usage is increasing, it's that kids are using other forms of media less. And so this has really important implications for parents who grew up watching television, accessing PBS, all these other sorts of educational media. This is a brave new world, and there's some pretty interesting findings for parents. So one of the real thing that I believe is going on is that as adults, we're used to thinking of these certain activities that children engage in, learning, entertainment, playing games, consuming media, watching cartoons. We're used to thinking of them as distinct activities. We had an opportunity to watch a 2-year-old pick up a magazine when we were at an event, and the 2-year-old picked up the magazine and tried to swipe the pages and said to the parent, "This is a broken iPad." And so when you think about this from the child's perspective, right, when they see a mobile device, it's where everything that they do in their lives, all of the media that they consume, their education, that's the source of it, that's the platform. And that's really important to understand. You'll see too that our approach as adults and as industry is siloed. So these are some great companies, right? So you think about all of these, and companies that make great products. When you think about approaching entertainment, learning, or safety, we think of those as distinct activities, and the fact that mobile is unifying them is going to challenge all of us in this room and everybody in this industry to think about mobile technology and to understand that we need to combine these sorts of activities into cohesive solutions. Parents are not willing to tolerate installing multiple pieces of software to accomplish a goal that, it would be really nice to just push a button and get all three of these things in one place. And so that's what Famigo is really focused on. This is a view of our consumer app. It's the same platform that we use, Dan mentioned, in Connected Car. It's also the same platform that we use just on any regular mobile device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone. And you can see that for kids, there's no distinction between learning, playing, and sort of educational outcomes, right? So that the whole platform is designed to say, here is all of the content that you can access. It's safe, it's available. Go ahead and play and explore. You can also see that, we'll talk about safety in a second. Safety means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think for parents, what it really means, there's Parents with Apps released this statement that I thought had a really interesting line, which was, safety means not being surprised. And so when you think about a parent, right, what do they want? They want transparency and they want control if they want to exercise it. So some of the things that Famigo's done, I point out the timer. We also have some granular settings, and then also we track children's usage. So we report that to the parents. But the thing is, for as many different kinds of kids that are out there, there are as many different kinds of parenting styles. And so one of the other things that, a lesson that we've learned repeatedly is that you need to give parents the tools to parent the way that they want to. Designing software to be a parent or to do some of the things that parents do is really not, it's not the optimal solution. Our timer development was an interesting story. Everybody asked us, we want a timer, we want a timer, we want a timer. Our customers told us that as often and as loudly as they could, so we built it. That's not what they wanted. What they wanted was the ability to set a curfew. So nobody used it when we built the timer. They wanted to set a curfew and say, here's bedtime, now the mobile device doesn't work, to stop those arguments. So parents were already parenting. They were making sure that children were, getting the appropriate amount of screen time that they wanted, depending on their parenting styles, but they wanted to stop those evening battles right before bedtime. And so it's really important to understand that and listen to those customers. And so here's what they say about security. They say that 90% of parents want security, right? So now imagine that you're the parent, and you look at this world. There's this nice little ghost up here in the corner. He looks pretty harmless, right? This is an overwhelming task to understand what each of these applications do, what are their privacy implications, what's beneficial for the child. And so there's also an important distinction, though. So think about, if anybody's familiar with the LA Unified deployment of tablets. So Apple deployed all of these tablets, and they immediately got hacked. And everybody was surprised by this. And so think about, you hand high schoolers a tablet, and what do they want to do? They want to engage with social media, they want to explore the web. There are all sorts of activities that they'd like to engage in. And the approach was to say, these tablets are totally locked down, you can't access any of that content. So it's a little bit like putting a kid in a room, and obviously these children are a little bit older than Famigo users, but it's a little bit like putting a high school student in a room with nothing to do. It's only a matter of time before they get into some kind of trouble. And kids are creative. They will find a way around our technology, and I think that that's an important lesson. And so what Famigo has focused on is not just blocking. You need to block the bad, right? But think about that empty room. You also need to fill it with useful toys, productive toys, things that are really engaging to that child. And I think that this is, when you think about people's approach to security on mobile devices, I think this is something that people get wrong often. This draconian top-down control approach doesn't work. And it doesn't work because people aren't treating the kids as customers when you do that, right? So one of the things that we've heard over and over again are young kids who say to their parent, I want my Famigo. We lock them into a sandbox environment. So nobody would expect that you would want a child into a locked area on a mobile device. Nobody would think that that was the child's wish, and it's not. Their wish is to access the content that they want. And so if all their toys are in a safe place, then obviously they're more inclined to spend some time there. And there's always an elephant in the room when you talk about safety on mobile devices, and that's COPPA. COPPA does not equal safety. I think a decent analogy is to think about the laws, lots of laws that adults are subject to, right? So the fact that I don't commit murder doesn't make me a good citizen. Similarly, in industry, the fact that I'm compliant with COPPA does not make me a good corporate citizen. And it's interesting to really understand how parents have reacted to COPPA. This is something Famigo's rather active in this because we have a platform, right? So the rules just don't neatly apply to the sorts of activities that Famigo's engaged in the way that it would to some other apps. We primarily because we deliver content from multiple sources, and so we started to talk to parents and tried to figure out, all right, so this law made you the fiduciary of your child's information. You have to consent to information collection practices. And so how do you actually behave when your kid says, I want to use this app or I want to use this property? And so more or less there are three answers. Big brands only. So the other way to say this is the Disney and Nickelodeon approach. Parents have a connection with a brand, they trust a brand, and so the response to that child is, you can use those things. Now the trouble with this is that you haven't actually done any sort of due diligence to understand whether or not those properties are safe for your kids, but the fact remains that as developers, we all want to get that big brand status and to gain that trust. There's the only with me approach. This is something that we hear from some parents. I would probably characterize them as more on the helicopter end of the spectrum. And the idea is you can only access digital media and digital content with an adult in the room, right? The trouble with that is that kids want to explore, right? That's the whole nature of childhood, especially for kids under the age of 8. You want to, how do we allow for kids to scrape their knees digitally without sort of wrapping them in foam all the time? And so I think that approach to a certain extent is flawed. Obviously you want parents to be involved, but if you want to get over that approach, you need to make parents comfortable, right? So you need to provide an environment on a mobile device that parents feel safe sort of letting go of and letting their children explore the way they want. And then the other approach, and this one I think is particularly troublesome, is parents will say, you can use whatever you want so long as you don't have to bug me to sign forms, to fax things into this company, whatever the case may be. The trouble here is that means that parents are saying, you can use all the non-compliant stuff you want, you can use as much unsafe stuff as you want, just don't bother me about it. And so it creates this really interesting, there are these behaviors as a result of COPPA that I think everybody is struggling with. And so it really impacts Famigo's life and our approach to business. And I would boil it down to, don't ever overestimate parents, right? So if you are thinking about child safety and your response is, just use those two brands or only with me, right? We don't want to overestimate the parental involvement or the nuance or the understanding of how to keep kids safe on mobile, and by keeping them safe, right? That's something that's a valuable service that we as developers can provide. And then also never underestimate kids. So children will create fake accounts. There are lots of kids on Facebook who are under the age of 13, right? So assume that they're a step ahead of you, and you'll do a little bit better. And then this is the educational opportunity that I wanted to discuss. So you have this captive audience, right? Kids are spending a ton of time on mobile. They're becoming ubiquitous, these mobile devices, and they're becoming cheap. There are now decent tablets that you can purchase, not only for under $100, but for under $50. And so when you think about all of the different, and I'm talking about the graph here on the left now, when you think about all of the different interventions that you could possibly engage in, early childhood interventions are by far the most productive. They reduce costs for things like increased rates of incarceration, the need for special ed services, and this is not just, this isn't something that Famigo's made up. This is something that a Nobel-winning economist has spent his life researching, right? So we have some, we can at least trust the data insofar as understanding that there is a real opportunity to provide good and to do good with children who are spending all of this time on mobile devices. And then there's this gap, right? So there's a gap between not only access to mobile devices, but what families who have a lower socioeconomic status and a higher socioeconomic status do on mobile devices. So higher socioeconomic families are more likely to engage with educational content, and the converse is true for families with lower socioeconomic status. And so what I think we can really focus on, and something that Famigo focused on, is, all right, there's this real opportunity, right? So we've gotten accustomed to thinking of ed tech, we've got accustomed to thinking of school as something that occurs between the age of 5 and 18. And so Famigo has really gotten focused on this space, and I think that there are a lot of other people too. Tokoboka certainly has. There's a great app developer called TippyTap, which has really focused on the early childhood space. And the research is there to say that it's producing results. So if you think back, to how I sort of started this presentation, I said, mobile is changing everything. And one of the things that is surprising about how mobile is changing is that we have found it's actually increasing interpersonal interactions. So I'm going to play a short video for you. It's so important when you're trying to understand families to actually get out and engage with them, right? So think about how hard it is to understand user behavior within a single application. When we think about user behavior as it relates to kids and families, we have to think about user behavior in the context of a family's life, right? So what does bedtime look like? How are mobile devices used on the way to and from school in the car? How are mobile devices used once you get to school? And so it's very important. I think that if you remember nothing else, the message I want you to leave with is, as developers, if you're trying to understand how kids and parents interact with mobile devices, there's absolutely no substitute for going and watching them interact with mobile devices and engaging with them in meaningful activities.
Play to Learn is a school readiness program based in Austin, Texas, that was created to prepare preschoolers and their parents for a lifetime of learning. Early childhood education is critical to a child's success in school and later in life. Famigo has developed the digital portion of Play to Learn to educate our children and assist families in lifelong learning.
Play to Learn is a short-term early education program that helps work with low-income families in low-income neighborhoods to help create some parental involvement in child's education by playing and by reading and by media usage.
With our pilot program for Play to Learn, we partnered with a research team at the University of Texas, and we saw significant gains in positive child behavior, so making friends easily, playing with others, and decreases in negative child behavior, such as outbursts and isolation.
We're working with our children, our families, in order for them to be school ready so that they'll have a leg up when they start preschool or they'll start kindergarten. And so we provide opportunities for them to work with their parents with reading skills, developmental skills that are appropriate for their language and for their development, and also for their media usage. So we have them using the tablet. With each session, we focus on a developmental skill for the child. And we work together to kind of cohesively put it all together, and then we use apps on the tablet that coordinate with the skill.
Who likes the games on the tablet?
Me!
Incorporating technology into early childhood programs is incredibly important because it's becoming part of the mainstream for the rest of their educational future. So in elementary school, middle, high school, they'll have to be interfacing with technology. Having Famigo as a partner for Play to Learn has been really valuable because it provides us with a much larger library of content than we'd ever be able to find on our own. So by partnering with Famigo, our families are able to receive approved apps that have been rated by their team of education experts that could be pushed out to them, as well as ebooks, the web-safe browser for children, the Wowzer. So being able to access all of that content really enhances the nature of our program.
So one of the things that we really learned through the Play to Learn program, I think, is the title of this talk was Kids and Family on Mobile, right? And so if you notice, when we engage in this type of program, mobile is one of 3 components. And I think that that's really important to understand. Mobile devices can't be parents, the software on them can't be parents, and these apps, games, everything that children do on mobile has to be integrated into the rest of their life. So there are a lot of people out there who think that mobile is the answer to everything. We think that it's the answer to some things. And so in particular, we think that if you want to have successful experiences with families and children on mobile, you need to involve and educate the parents, right? So it doesn't make any sense to talk about kids and family on mobile without actually getting the parents involved and without actually observing that behavior. We talked a little bit about don't underestimate kids. When you go into those sessions and you see a 3-year-old teach their parent how to use a tablet, it's pretty astonishing. And that's really sort of the power of it, right? So mobile's changing children's lives. They just inherently get the platform. And so they have an opportunity to have meaningful interactions with their families where they're the experts. And then finally, create opportunities for education, right? So this is, we had to think a little bit outside the box to start this Play to Learn program, but I can't even begin to tell you how much we've learned from that program. It's invaluable experience, and if you don't get out into the community and you don't get out working with kids and parents, you're not going to learn these things. So I think the other big point that I really want to drive home is get out from behind the desk if you're interested in kids and families, and go work with them and learn from them. So thank you.